It's Randip and Dan, and we got another video for you. This time we're focusing on the Vancouver Canucks. It was a bad season all around for the Canucks, but Francesco Aquilini, the owner, is bringing back the GM and the coach, Travis Green. The extension for him was announced last week. Dan, was that a good move to bring both of those guys back?
It was the right move to bring Travis Green back. I don't like how long the process played out. And look, I know a lot of people in the fan base don't necessarily agree with sticking with this management group that has, through 7 years, made the playoffs just twice. And that's the kind of production from a management group that most teams do not commit to. But I think what the Canucks ownership is looking at here is they didn't give Jim Benning the resources he needed to build off of the playoff appearance they had in the bubble last summer and taking Vegas to 7 games in that bubble experience as well. So once they didn't do that, and they had Markstrom leave, they had Tanev leave, they had Toffoli leave, everything happened in the offseason, and it was just clear the ambition wasn't there from ownership. So they are saying, essentially, you get a mulligan. You get a breakfast ball. I don't know if a lot of people agree with that, but that's the feeling I get here. And now it just puts a ton of pressure on Jim Benning, who's got 2 years left on his deal. Travis Green matches up with that now, and they've got to make the playoffs next year.
Well, last year might have been, the breakfast ball or the mulligan, whatever you want to call it. But this time around, it's go time. The Canucks, based on the messaging coming from the Canucks camp that they're going to be aggressive, they've got the green light from ownership. That means that they're going to be spending some money. They're going to maybe doing some buyouts and making some trades. So it is go time. Both Travis Green and Jim Benning, it seems like, have to deliver. But the big question here is, how do you deliver with this current roster? Where do you go from here, Dan? Where do you start?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of holes to fill. The good news is a lot of it is towards the bottom of the roster, and how do you restructure that so you get more production and take a little bit of the burden off of, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, the core of the offense, and certainly Bo Horvat factors in there as well. But problem is, Jim Benning has been known to spend too much in those spots. And when he comes out and he says, we're going to be aggressive this offseason, we're going to think about buyouts and trades and all these different things. I mean, how can you not be somewhat afraid of that? You still have the Beagle and Roussel contracts that they are paying for and, maybe using as buyouts for this upcoming summer, because those players just haven't provided the value that this team hoped that they would. They're still paying Louis Eriksson $6 million against the cap for next season. There's just too much dead weight on this roster, and a lot of it is because Jim Benning has been way too aggressive in free agency. So yeah, I mean, that is a bit of a worry here, Randip, that they're going to do that again and punt some of the cap flexibility that they have a little further down the line. Mid-season, Jim Benning said 2 years. 2 years is probably when we are in our optimal window to really contend. And that is when those contracts that I just mentioned start to come off the books. You put buyouts in, you start ruining your cap flexibility down the road to try and push for this year. I mean, now you're just doubling down on mistakes and worsening your bit of short-term success, which, as we all know, is not guaranteed.
Well, okay. When Jim Benning says he wants to be aggressive, the question is, what does that mean? What has ownership signed off on? Buyouts, yes, they are problematic. Are there one or two that can be done? Sure, the Jake Virtanen buyout is a cheap one on the cap. It's $550,000 over 2 years. That one makes financial sense, and it makes sense to get that one done. Beyond that, you're right. It does limit what you can do down the road. Free agency. If I work for the Canucks organization, if I'm Francesco Aquilini, I'm taking Jim Benning's cell phone on the first day of free agency and throwing it into Falls Creek, Broward Inlet, whatever body of water you can find, you throw it in there, because I don't think it would be smart for him to be spending that money in free agency. However, trades could be interesting. If you look at the potential, expansion draft protection list for the Canucks, outside of some of the top players, it's not all that impressive. So trades before the expansion draft could be a thing for the Canucks. They've got, some draft picks that they can, dangle, potentially a first round pick for next year. Beyond that as well, if you look at, some mid-round picks as well, there is some action that Jim Benning can have there So I would say focus on a buyout, focus on some trades, some aggressive moves before the expansion draft. But beyond that, free agency, I'm not touching that because there are a lot of players you can overpay for in this class. And let's be real, Vancouver maybe last year was perceived as more of a destination. After what happened this year, some of the noise around the organization, I think they took a step back then.
They did. And, the brand took a hit, as we've talked about a lot. And Jim Benning, when he did talk to us on our radio show on Sportsnet 650 Vancouver last Friday, he mentioned they're looking for different types of free agents this time around, skill and speed.
So opposed to non-skilled forwards, which I didn't get that. I'll be honest.
Well, the Beagle contract, I remember it vividly, but the explanation there was we need some veteran leadership to insulate our young players as they grow. Now they are looking for skill and speed to supplement the offense further down the lineup. But do you want to pay Blake Coleman $4 million this offseason, or Matthias Janmark, who's a good two-way forward to fit on your third line? I don't, that's definitely not going to be it. That's not going to do it for this Canucks team. Trade is right. They can upgrade their protection slots. And when it comes to the expansion draft, they can take advantage of a team like, Colorado, Carolina, all the ones that are going to be mentioned the closer we get to the Seattle expansion draft. But I will say this, if the Canucks don't make that kind of a move, that's a failure this offseason. It is a failure if they don't upgrade the latter spots of their protection group, because Cole Lind, looks like a nice player. Maybe he figures himself out, but I didn't see enough there at the end of the season to really show that he's got high upside at the NHL level. Jonah Gadjic, same thing. They can upgrade on those final protection spots that they've got going into the expansion draft. And if they don't do that, if they don't take advantage of that situation, that's a failure from this management group.
It's go time for Jim Benning. Let's see if it's Trader Jim or Spender Jim. How aggressive do you want the Canucks to be, and who should they target? Hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.